Unique of the Week. And we have with us Dean Roy with ShareFam.com. And ShareFam's a very interesting concept that I got introduced to a little while ago, and actually was fortunate enough to be able to work with Dean on a couple different pieces of what's going together as far as his collateral is concerned. Fantastic website at sharefam.com, SHAREFAM.com. So if you're out there and you're listening and you want to play along, you can open up sharefam.com at this point, and we can walk you through how all this works. But Dean, thank you so much for being here.
Well, thanks for having me, Andy and Lee. I'm really excited to be here and to talk about this site. And it's a passion of mine, so I just love to share with everyone else.
Why don't you just take us through the site and what it has and what makes it so special?
Okay, well, ShareFam.com actually takes the social network model of the ones that you hear out there are the Facebooks and MySpaces of the world, and takes that model and actually applies it to the family unit, and applies it to the family unit in a private place where families can go and they can do everything they can do on Facebooks and MySpace, and they can share photos, they can tell stories, plan events, send messages. Everyone has a profile and everyone's connected, but the only people you interact with are the people that are actually in your family, not random strangers friending you like the other services.
So it's a closed network.
It's a closed network, yes.
And it's a network where you can kind of catch up with the family members that you see pretty often, and the ones that you certainly don't. I mean, I know in my family, most of my family's back up in Pennsylvania.
Exactly.
So I don't get to see my cousins. I don't get to see my second cousins or the folks like that anyway that often. And embarrassingly enough, sometimes I'll get up there and I'll be like, "Oh my gosh, is that Jocelyn? Or is that Ben?"
And Andy, that's the way the site started, and that's the way the idea started. Was really it was my family during the holidays going to visit some extended relatives and planning. So I go to my aunt's house and she has quite a large family. She had 8 children, and all of their children seem to have had a half dozen or more. And so,
apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
Exactly. And when I go there, it's just tough to stay connected with them and understand what's going on in their lives. And then plain and simple to remember names sometimes.
I was going to say, just doing the math on that, that's 50 names to remember.
I think that's tough. I think we had 60, but I'd have to keep my aunt or my mother close by all the time to just remember people's names, and that just there was so much love in the room with the family and getting together and sharing stories and sharing the updates from the entire year, that it was a little tainted because of the lack of connection.
Now, how does it work in terms of, like, in a lot of families, like, there's the father side and the mother side, and sometimes the trains don't meet. If say one side of the family has a big family, how do they, can they just be by themselves? Or because once you start, like, family is so broad, how do you just keep it closed?
How do you define what fam you're going to share?
Well, I think that's what really makes us our site unique, is that we're going to actually, as you invite people into what we're calling your network, into your family, the only people that you're going to see are the people that are actually blood relatives of yours, and those people's spouses. So what happens is when I add, let's say I add my brother, and he adds his wife, and then she adds her family, I can see him and I can see her because we have a connection. We really are family, but I won't see the rest of her family. But it also creates a place where they can go in one spot and share photos and share memories with everyone involved. So
there's a DNA test that's involved.
There's not a DNA test, but we have a really strict way in the way you invite people. You invite people in by specific relationships, and by doing that, we set in place rules that say this is where essentially your network ends.
So it's the immediate family is that the starting point on this? Or
the immediate family is the starting point, and the immediate family is actually set up around what we call a table. And the reason why we wanted to put it around a table is because culture, like where families connect in America, is really around the kitchen table, and that's whether you're catching up like we were talking about with family over the holidays, or you're just sharing a meal. That's really where the family connects, and that's where we place our family members.
Now, when you go to sign up for the site, first of all, let's talk about, is there a cost to the site?
There's no cost to the site. The site is free. We have an advertising model like most social network sites do today. And the reason we want to, there's a multitude of reasons why we want to do that business-wise, but we want to give people a chance to try our site, to interact with their family members and see really what can happen.
Now, you just mentioned the advertising model. Let's talk about that for just a little bit and sort of how that plays into what ShareFam is turning into and can become. There's a couple different pieces that would be a logical next step for ShareFam. You want to talk about a little bit about how some of those sponsors and advertisers play into the model?
Sure, but I think maybe we want to start with what kind of advertisers are we going to have on the site.
Sure, that'd be great.
From day one, the original idea was we can have this site that's really geared towards family members and geared towards the family unit. And so we want to make sure we maintain a high standard with our advertisers in that they're family-friendly products, family-friendly companies, and create the right kind of atmosphere in the site.
And so this is more G and PG?
Definitely, I think definitely. And one of the neat things about actually social networking sites, though, is that you can tailor your advertising to specific people. So it doesn't prevent us from advertising directly to people for
right. Like say my family's more R. Would the ads be more R?
Well, probably not. But I tell you, if you sign in, the advertisements will actually be geared to you as a male and as a your age bracket and your stage in
crazy
life.
kind of guy. It's just Lee. It's all right.
Look, what about Aura May? What do you think her family's going to be like?
I can only imagine, but at the same time, I'd really like to find out. It's a lot of fun.
I can imagine that they would eat up our network with the amount of back and forth that their family would
on the site. Is it? I know photos are on the site. Or is video on the site?
Well, that's something that we're really working on right now, and to create either a place where if you have videos sharing online already, to bring those into to our site and to share those in our site. Also, we're looking at some ways to actually host videos ourselves.
Oh wow, that would be. Now you're into bandwidth.
I was going to say
we are, but I think we're going to try and create it in a way that that allows other people to handle that bandwidth. From a business perspective, the cost of video is very high. If we can come up with some ways to allow people to have videos elsewhere and run them through our site, and a lot of them are doing that now. A lot of the video hosting services are doing that now.
Right. I was going to say, one of the things I liked about the site, and anybody that goes through the tour can actually see it too, is the My Stories portion of it, where you can get everything from history to stories to things that have happened, and it's sort of like you mentioned, it's that sort of catch up, but it's a year-round thing now.
And it's also the documentation of the history of the family. You're preserving it.
Who cares? Oh, jeez.
Not in my family.
Yours.
Wild and crazy R-rated guys over there.
Our R-rated Lee is being very nostalgic with us. Well, the stories part is actually one of my favorite parts because my family, the memories of my family are sitting around the kitchen table at my uncle's house or my aunt's house and having my parents and my aunts and uncles tell stories about when they were little kids. And I think that's something that if you can pass that along to future generations, I think it's an amazing thing.
Absolutely.
And so you mentioned that it's I guess going to evolve into video, but is there anything else on the future for you guys? What are other things?